let's go to Ottawa now. TSN 1200's Shawn Simpson joins us. TSN Simmer. It's 2 weeks today, Simmer. NHL trade deadline, if you don't mind. And I'm wondering, since you're in Ottawa and you're covering the Sens so religiously, maybe what you expect the Sens to do, the losers of 5 in a row after losing in Vegas last night.
Well, I think they'll trade for Johnny Hockey, probably do a couple other things and take a run for the playoffs. Well, maybe not. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. Now with Matt Murray being injured, you literally look at this, right? You say, hey, probably can't trade Forsberg. I think Sanford will be a light deal. And a question of Nick Paul. Do they get him signed, which I think they want to? That's about as much activity as I see from the Ottawa Senators. I don't see the Ennis Tierneys or a lot of other guys having much interest around the league. So I think they'll finish the season. So as it sits as of today, I think it'll be pretty quiet here in Ottawa.
Well, Simmer, as you well know, the general manager got an extension in the offseason in Ottawa, got the same head coach back, but they're going to miss the playoffs. Still very young, and I saw them play in Florida. They work incredibly hard. But was more expected from the Sens this year, from you and the fan base?
Well, you know what? I think more was expected with the start. And once again, there were some issues there as far as some of the personnel, the goaltending, I think overall. But hey, if you look at this big picture, there's been an advance with the younger players. I expected them to be, I guess, in the playoff talk, almost like Detroit, but I didn't expect a ton more. The thing you really look at when you look at this team is the core is evolving, it's maturing, it takes some time. But the last couple of years here, most of the additions and things they've tried to do to improve the hockey club haven't worked. So I think that's where the pressure is. And I do really think the old rubber will meet the road next year. I think as you start the fall, there will be some expectations. They'll have to get off to a better start. And I think overall, most of those things are in place. But as I said, it's a long, long process here, as you know, in a rebuild. So I didn't expect them to be a playoff team, but I didn't expect them to be out of the playoffs by November either.
Must follow on Twitter at TSN Simmer. And by the way, you can get Game Plus television all across Ontario on Rogers Cable and Cogeco Cable. 2 trade deadline day in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Any predictions? What do you think is going to go down?
No. Well, no, I mean, I think the obvious is Montreal. I mean, a guy like Ben Sherratt, there's going to be activity there. You look at it, and first year with 32 teams, you got 16 aren't going to make it. Clearly in the East, I think the 8 are defined. It's quite a playoff race in the West and what's going to happen. But no, I think realistically, how many players are involved? The big boys like Drew or Automatics, are they going to go? I don't think much will happen in Chychrun. Do they move Petrie? I think it'll be the usual activity, but probably a little more competition in a sense of in the East. I could see Boston going for a big move. And then in the West, I think any of the teams out there, including Edmonton, I don't know how you can go to the deadline without a goaltender, but also what is the market for that goaltender and who is it? So it'll be typical. It'll be active, but I don't think we're going to see any mega trades come playoff deadline time.
Okay, Simmer, what are they saying in your circles? Because as you well know, out here in Alberta, Ken Holland made headlines last week with saying, with Mike Smith healthy and Koskinen healthy, we're comfortable with our goaltenders. And we're like, what are you seeing? What did you think when you heard that?
Well, you know what? Kenny's supposed to say that. And, you know, the funny part, when Kenny worked in Detroit, how many years and how many people, including Brian Murray, got fired when Kenny took over after they made the Bob Essenza trade? I mean, historically, Detroit had so many issues trying to find that final piece. What else would you say when you brought Mike Smith back, gave him a 2-year contract? You had to predict as an older goaltender, and what a great career, what a battler. But the wheels have come off. In the case of Koskinen, he's either good or terrible. And in this case, I think a change of scenery would certainly help. So I appreciate that he says that. But at the end of the day, hey, if you don't do anything at this trade deadline, you don't make the playoffs, then probably his job is going to be in jeopardy. So you're looking around, you're wondering, is it Marc-Andre Fleury? You wonder what's really out there. But at this point in the season, if you're Kenny Holland, what else would you say? Not going to throw the 2 under the bus that you might have to go with on the 22nd of March going forward.
Good point, and maybe a little bit of job preservation and guys that don't want to admit maybe they were wrong. He also said he wasn't going to fire Dave Tippett, and 3 weeks later he did. But here's an interesting wrinkle for you, Simmer. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, in those cases, you don't have a choice. When he worked in Detroit, nobody cared what he said in the sense of, your Canadian market. You're not going to say, you have to play it this way. So I don't look at any fault in that. He's now realizing it's a whole different ballgame to be in a Canadian market versus being in Detroit.
Okay, so a couple of things I got to hit on. It has to do with goaltending. Our poll question today for Capital Automall Universal Collision Center is, which NHL team's goaltending is the most concerning? Oilers, Leafs, or Florida Panthers? Because the Panthers have been in my top 5 all year long, but they've been giving up a lot of goals lately. They had a 3-game losing streak on the go till they beat Ottawa last week. How would you answer that? Well, obviously the Oilers is the most concerning, but should Florida be in that poll?
Well, I don't know if Florida would be. And I think Bobrovsky, when you look at the numbers, he's only had one playoff victory all time, and that was Columbus versus Tampa. Hey, you've made your bed with that. Now, could they find a more capable backup? Certainly Forsberg here in Ottawa, very underrated. I think he could be a co-starter somewhere, be a great insurance policy. But, man, that one between Edmonton and Toronto is really interesting because, of course, they've made their bed with Jack Campbell and Mrazek. And Campbell, it looks like the energy, the wheels, the pressure. So I've looked at this and said to myself, hey, if I'm Toronto, knowing that market, having worked there, and knowing the last guys to have success were Belfour and Joseph, the only goaltender that would fit the mold in Toronto would be Marc-Andre Fleury. And that's something I try to do. And as far as Edmonton, well, again, the last time they had a capable goaltender, would it have been Cujo? Would it have been Dwayne Rollison? I mean, this has been an issue in Edmonton, really from a drafting standpoint, going back to Grant Fuhr and Andy Moog. So it has not been pretty. But I think those two, and for Florida, hey, I'll be honest with you, if it doesn't work out with Bobrovsky, I pull a Cam Ward like Carolina did back in the day, and I give Spencer Knight an opportunity.
And speaking of this, because it's one of my favorite topics, goaltending, you and I are in the union.
Yeah.
By the way, Shawn Simpson, drafted by the Washington Capitals in 1986 and worked in the front office. A viewer pointed out earlier, you mentioned the Canadian market glare that Ken Holland's under. Is it tougher for goalies in Canada?
You know what? People talk about that, but then I look at a market like Philadelphia and think, hey, how much pressures are there? Hey, when you're in Canada, there's no doubt. But I had not recognized coming from Washington to work for the Leafs. We made the Raycroft trade, and obviously it didn't work out. We knew Rask was going to be real good. What I didn't understand with Raycroft is a whole different dynamic. Rookie of the year in Boston, you go there. I think the pressure there for sure. Do I think the Canadian markets are more pressure than others? Oh, absolutely. But there's certainly some tough places in the United States. But as an overall, oh, yeah, when Vancouver's got a good team, Calgary's competitive, well, kind of going up and down the list trying to play in Montreal. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, for sure it's going to be tougher. And Toronto, to me, is the epitome of, probably the toughest job, at least in the National Hockey League, being a goaltender for the Leafs.
Interesting. We have 60 seconds. Who's Canada's best hope to bring home the Stanley Cup this spring?
Well, it's funny going into the season, I thought Winnipeg was the best team, and I still look at this as a real missed opportunity. But realistically, what has happened here, and what an incredible job they've done in Calgary, and I was really skeptical when Sutter came in, but when I look at that, look at some of the additions they've made, and end up making the Toffoli trade the way Markstrom trade. As long as they don't run Markstrom right into the ground, I absolutely love what Calgary's doing. I'll be quite honest with you, it says today, and I respect Toronto, but in understanding where they're at, how poor they are defensively, can't imagine them going through Tampa or Florida. So I think at the end of the day, Calgary Flames have a legitimate chance. And like I say, great work by them, because this time last year, I thought it was time to blow that thing up, maybe even change out the manager, but Brad's done great work.
I was leading the parade, man. I'm more than happy eating crow and giving them plaudits for the job that they've done. And boys, this city on fire with this hockey team, and good for them. Simmer, thanks for the chat, my man. Keep it up. Keep up the great work. I love following you. Yeah,
you as well, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
TSN 1200 Ottawa's Shawn Simpson. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.